The Real Talk Corner. We back. We in the building. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fighting my way through the darkness where the wicked don't rest. Conscious aware, truth I dare, shield tied to my chest. My tenacity can put these motherfuckers to the test. High priestess of fire, alchemistic desire. I say manifest and shit, even when I am tired. You can call me amazing, by the bricks I be laying, but you'll never call me lazy, cause my vibes are devastating. In the league of my own, spitting real talk energy. I know a little something about a thing called synergy. This is old radio, throw a sun and masses awakening. Listen up, cause we about to set your mind, body, and soul free. Welcome to the Real Talk Corner podcast, where we dive deep into personal journeys and topics that can inspire and transform us on a mind, body, soul, and spirit level. I'm your host, Ariana Gutierrez, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Dr. Lynda Namey, who holds a master's degree in clinical mental health and a doctorate in crisis and trauma counseling. In this episode, we'll explore her incredible journey from heartbreak to discovering her purpose, and a story filled with hope and resilience. Join us for an uplifting and insightful conversation that highlights the power of healing and finding one's true path. Let's get started. All right, let's jump into it. I have a special guest with me today, Dr. Lynda Namey. I'm going to have her tell you about herself before we jump in, but I actually named this episode A Story of Hope. And I did that because you have this crazy story. Not that people don't have crazy stories, but it's, for me, there's heartbreak and there's healing and there's transformation and reinvention and then service to others, which I love that part, right? Because I think through all of those things kind of brings you to a calling and a purpose. And then boom, we are here talking about it today. So Dr. Lynda Namey, tell them, the ones who are listening and viewing, because we got YouTube and we got Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. So go ahead.
It is a crazy story, but the more I tell it, the more I realize there are more people out there like me than who want to admit it. Yes. My background is part of the crazy is years ago, I went to, a long time ago, I went to school in vocal performance. Had a dream I was going to be on Broadway, which, is part of the story. Everybody has a dream about what they're going to do, who they're going to be. And that's just not how it works out. But it turned out that what I ended up doing was counseling and life coaching for a very long time, until about 7 years ago, I had a heart attack and realized that I am someone, as an empath, that I could never leave it behind. I was not someone who could see a client and hear their pain and go home and just live. And I think that the stress of life and my story, which we'll get into, it became too much. So after I did all that, I, sold everything I owned, packed my car with 2 boxes and my French bulldog. I moved 12 hours away from the only home that I ever knew, where my entire family is. And I moved and recreated myself, which we will get into. But then during COVID, when everybody was doing the, what do I do? Who am I? People losing jobs and all the craziness, I went back and got my doctorate in crisis and trauma counseling. So what I'm doing now is a little bit a different form of counseling, but for the most part, what I'm doing is I call myself a motivational speaker, but I'm sharing my message. My business is called The Light in Me, and I very much believe, as I say, anytime I share my message of my pain, which led to my hope, The message is, may that light in me shine to the light in you and radiate for the world to see, because that's what it's about.
Oh, definitely. I don't think that we realize when we start to speak about things that we've gone through, how it inspires others. And it's such a ripple effect that then they speak about it in someone
Right.
else, you know.
Exactly. And that is, I mean, obviously, as a counselor, I have a passion for mental health, and I have a passion for giving people a platform and the courage to make the hard decisions that they have to in life, and to actually just speak up and say, hey, I hurt, because nobody is happy all the time.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So that very much was part of my mission when I started my business, is to say, it's okay to not be okay. And that more people need to check on the checkers. And that is up to each one of us to unlock that light that's inside and find your own special way to shine the light, because that's how we make the world a better place. And it's a rough world.
It is. I want to ask you because of I love that people are embracing themselves, and we're trying to shift into this place of acceptance and love. Do you think there is a too far over of, okay, because like my reality could be I'm talking to my unicorn over here, and that's my reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But everyone can see my unicorn. And that reality might be scary to someone else,
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a too much too far?
Yeah, there's so many ways I could go with that. I think that what I would say is, I think we can look at the analogy of, when you say, is it too much too far? And I could look at somebody else and I could say, your pain isn't my pain, but we both experience pain. So
Right.
I think that everybody who's out there, we have a reality, and it's not for you or for me or for anyone else to try to make your reality mine, or for me to make my reality someone else's. It's just for us to accept that we are where we are, and that's okay. Like, just let it be. That's okay.
Right. Definitely. I think a lot of what I've seen is come across a lot of, and even me, I think I was in a space of wanting that validation, but you're never really going to get that because your story is your own, your pain is your own.
Yeah.
Your shoes, nobody's walked in your shoes but you.
No one is. And that, I think, is one of the big things in the work that I'm doing, is that I want people to know that it's okay to be right where you are, because you're right as you should be, and you're right where you should be. And we can't compare. There's no comparison. I think the only thing that you can ever say to anyone would be like simple things like, feelings just are, but your feelings aren't mine. Pain just is, but your pain level and mine, they're different, but the same. And I think that that's just part of the acceptance of saying it's okay, just be.
Right. All right. So let's jump in, because when I first heard your story, you were married. Let's go into that.
For close to 25 years. And I'm still going to say it's taken a long time. It's been 12 years now, but he's an amazing man. And I can honestly say, I didn't realize how unhappy I was until I was happy. And I think there are a lot of people out there that way.
We can unpack that a little bit, because when you were married 20 something years, then boom, it's over. But in that moment, you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yes, that's when you go, WTF. Yeah. And I don't even know that I can say, so I use this whole thing that I call the whiteboard analogy, where whoever you are at whatever age, whether it's, the 5-year-old who I'm going to be a baseball player, the 18-year-old, I'm going to be on Broadway. We have this vision of what we're going to do and who we're going to be. And I call it the whiteboard, or your whole picture is drawn. And then what happens in life, which you and I get, and your listeners get, is something happens. It's either, a person comes in and just like, I think I'll erase that, which is what happened to me. It's a divorce. It could be an illness. It could be a car accident. It could be unemployment. But life events come in and they erase this whiteboard. And it's at that pivotal moment where you're just like, and you don't know what to do. And that's when your story starts. And that's your pain. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people is I don't know what your pain is. I don't know what your pivotal moment is, but I do know what you can do next.
Right. We do talk about that a lot on my podcast of just the perception that we have of life, what it's supposed to be, what we think our expectation, and that's everyone has their own. Even your partner has their own expectation of what life looks. I want to talk a little bit about like divorce because I've seen a lot where there are a lot of people kind of condemning people for divorce, and I know that there's this thing, oh, the stats are so high, which they don't even take out the people who have been divorced multiple times. So they group them all together, which I think is flawed in the stats anyway. So what would you say to someone? Because I don't think anyone should feel bad because two people grow apart and decide, you know what, we'll be better off not together anymore. Like our time is up.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even always, I wish that it was always, I was a counselor for a long time. I wish that it was always two people collectively, calmly, nicely say we grew apart, but that's not the way it is.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
People to understand before it happens that people, because everyone has this like, you're mine. And it's kind of like the job. And I always talk about the job, like you work there and then they can you. And
that's happened to me too.
There's nothing you can do about it though, right? They no longer need you. And it's like, why is it different? Yeah, you've put 20 years in this job and you've done all this, but once you walk away, you can't take anything that you've put into that job. So the same thing is, why do we clench on to people like, you're mine and you can't go anywhere? And if you do, I'm going to ruin your fucking life. And it's like,
marriage is such an interesting topic to me, especially as somebody who's been divorced and as I've done marriage counseling, and I was raised a Methodist. So when you take into background and how people were raised, and I think especially, like, I don't know how old you are, but I think that for me, I'm in that age range of you see your parents who are married forever, but then you see your kids who wait until they're in their 30s to make sure, but you can never be sure. It's just such an interesting dynamic to me to look at but you stay married forever. That's what the Bible told you to do. You go to college to meet your husband. Like the way I've watched things transition into, it's okay to live with someone for 10 years.
Right.
Build your life. It's just such an interesting topic to me that I'm like, somebody out there's going to have a really good podcast.
I talk about all of it because just, people have a very hard time with just grasping what it looks like. And I deal with a lot of relationships. So a lot of women that are in there, I've been with him 5 years and he hasn't given me a ring, that kind of thing. And it's just like,
and beyond that, beyond the relationship thing is that whole connotation of failure.
Yeah.
Where I like to look at the fact that I was married for close to 25 years, not as a failure because it ended, but as a success because we got married very young. And now I look at it as, look at who we became, because, oh my word, I love who I am now. So I will forever be grateful to him for all of that pain, which is one of those things that I talk about we all have pain. You get to choose to make it beautiful. Like that's a beautiful pain that I would not have known if he hadn't made the choices he did.
Right.
And I'm not ever going to sit here and go, oh, I think he's amazing. But I won't. Like I say to my kids, I don't really like your father, but I will forever be grateful for who he made me. And he is right where he should be. Like he is right where he should be and with who he should be with. So marriage to me is just relationships in general is a very interesting topic to me because nobody fails in a relationship.
No, no. It's all learning. It's all experience. None of us know what's going to happen. And I talk about this a lot because, and I know women do this a lot. Women probably do this more because we get sold the dream young. We get sold the dream young, the fairy
Right.
tale wedding, the fairy tale life,
Your wedding, and yeah,
and then reality is
charming.
right. A reality is so different. And so I talk about this a lot with women because it's just the reality of it. It's different. And there is no book to really, I always tell everyone, you need to like the person, first of all. And most people aren't liking each other. They're just together for all of the other reasons, whether it's financial, whether it's
your kids, it's too much work. How do we tell our families? Yeah. And then if you throw on top of all of that religion,
that too,
which is a whole other, but the Bible says, yeah. Oh yeah, relationships and marriage to me, I'm like, oh boy, you could go on for hours.
I'm 44. My parents were in a dysfunctional marriage. Mm-hmm. So, and I had a horrible experience with my daughter's father when I was very young. So that made me look at relationships completely different. And I've never been married, and I don't know, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't.
It's okay.
But I do take marriage seriously. So like, I wouldn't just go run off and marry anyone. Just like I was a single mom and I didn't just bring anybody home. Like I was very particular about that. Like, I really want to make sure this is someone, because I don't want another man to disappoint my daughter. Her dad has already done that. I don't need another man to do that. Yeah. So I was very particular about that, of not creating another space or time of that. But I don't think you can fail. You learn from it, hopefully.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that the pain's not there and the hurt's not there, and it doesn't take forever to live with it. But you learn from it. There are no failures in the end of a relationship.
Mm-mm. It's like, if you can take what did you take from it? What'd you learn from it? And even like me, I would never go back and change anything. I would never go back and change who my daughter's father, even though we'll never be together again. That was 20 something years ago when we were together, but I would never go back and change it. I got my daughter out of that.
Yeah.
And I have two beautiful grandsons. I would never go back and change it.
How old are your grandsons?
They're 11 now. They're 11. So, it's just things like that. When you look at it, it's like, you wouldn't go back and change that. You wouldn't erase your children. So like, that could be the first part of it. Okay, let me take that part and, start to then unpack maybe some other things that I can say. I learned a lot in that relationship with my daughter's father. Well, he taught me all of what I didn't want.
That's the beautiful pain that I talk about. It's beautiful.
Exactly.
And every moment, whatever you go through, and it hurts a lot. Like, life really hurts a lot. It does. And that's just, that it just is. Like, life is full of pain, but we each get to make the choice. How did you wallow or make it beautiful?
True. How did you decide you want to, or not wanted to, or how did you go about doing your healing? So life is, you're like, wait a minute, life is definitely different.
Yeah. So here's the part of the story where I say to people, I'm a counselor, but I was suicidal. And it's part of my story that it has only been recently that I have been like, this part needs to be shared. There's more to the story than, my former husband left me for his girlfriend.
Right.
And I tried to make it sound nice, but it wasn't. Like, I absolutely went through the crazy woman scorned. And I was suicidal. Like, the only life I knew and the way that I was raised and everything that I had was attached to him. A very codependent relationship. So the way my story goes is, I was going to commit suicide. Like, I actually had it planned. And as a counselor, I knew all kinds of ways. And I knew the results of what would happen. And how do you do it? And who's like, and we don't need to get into that because, but the way my story goes is I was cleaning up papers and getting everything in order because I didn't, my son at the time had very much, it was a very painful time. My son chose to move out with me. My daughter chose to stay with her dad, and they were 18 and 21. So I was in a much better position than a lot of women.
Right.
But the story is that I was getting everything ready for my son. I didn't want him to have to worry because he was going to experience so much pain because chances are he was going to be the one who found me. But I had a life insurance policy and everything that I had, not a big life insurance policy, but it was left to my ex-husband. And I looked at that, and in that moment I went, he has taken enough from me.
Wow.
I can't do this and give him money. Like, I'm just continuing to make his life easier. And I, in the meantime, had gone from this Methodist trying to figure out religion into very much believing in the universe. And there's karma, and that's not karma. But that's that where I say it's a pivotal moment where you just stop and you're like, I can make a different choice. I don't have to, regardless of where I am, my story can end differently. And that's the moment for me. And I did. I called, I have 3 sisters. I called my oldest sister and I was like, I need you to get me to the hospital. I need to be on the other side. I'm not a counselor. I need help. And I did. I checked myself into a mental hospital and they were amazing. And I did everything that I probably ever sent my clients to do, but never experienced it. Yeah. And it was one of those where I'm like, I really needed that. Like I needed to see what that was like. It has made me a much better counselor, empath, life coach, speaker, because I've been on both sides. Yeah, but that was my moment. And everybody has those moments. And I hope that everybody doesn't have such a painful moment that they think about ending it. But I've done this a long time. And a lot of people get to that spot where you need a moment.
More than what people are willing to admit. I believe that there's tons and tons and tons of people who have been there, but just don't talk about it because of the stigma.
And I want more people to talk about it.
Oh,
like I want more people to be able to say and not to be embarrassed or be ashamed or think that there's something wrong with it. I want more people to be able to say, I was there. I was in that hole, but I found the light and I got out. There's so many people out there.
I've been there too, a couple times.
And I mean, it was extreme. It was extreme for me in 2 weeks to quit my job and sell everything I own and, just move 12 hours away, but it worked for me. And I'm so glad it worked for me. I don't know that I would work with someone and go, hey, sell everything you own and, drive 12 hours in your convertible with your bulldog and 2 boxes and start over. But it worked for me.
I would. I've moved a couple of times. I tell people all the time, you can, you can, but you shouldn't be afraid of change because sometimes that change is what you need. I did it when I was 23. I packed up and I moved across the country. I've done it tons of times where I've sold all my stuff and I've moved to another state.
Yeah. And, I do a whole, and there's a book in the works, but I do a whole talk called The Happiness Shift. And one of the quotes that I use, because I do 5 ways in 5 days, is change is good, but forced change is better. Because we can all make a choice to make a little change, but when you're forced to do something huge, that's amazing. I mean, that's when the real work happens.
Oh, yeah. Those big changes. I've loved every time. I've only been in Illinois like 2 years. So, and I just did a recent one. And I tell people I'm in my 40s. There's no age limit to starting over.
Oh my
There's no cutoff that says nope, you can't reinvent yourself or start over again. I
Yeah.
really like if we let go of again the expectation of what we think life
Yeah.
to be, right? And just kind of say, you know what, I'm no longer happy here. What else can I do? And the amazing part is the universe will open up the sky and show you.
Lord, will it ever? And that's my other thing when I work with people, and I'm sure you do too, and they go, well, I'm not happy. And I'm like, well, that's okay.
Right.
Nobody gets up every day, or when we talk about we have to have the attitude of gratitude, I'm like, that's great. So end your night and come up with 5 things that you're grateful for, but it doesn't mean that you're happy.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
Like, just give yourself the grace to be where you are. Don't try to convince yourself that you should be somewhere else.
No, it's a delusion. It's a, one of my first podcast actually, my first podcast episode was about happiness, because I was like, nobody can be happy all the time. There's so much going on outside of us that we cannot control. So we're here to experience all of the emotions, good, bad, the ugly, all of them.
Right.
And
just are. Yeah. And you get it, like as a healer or a counselor or a life coach or whatever title you want to give what we do. There is this, you're supposed to be happy. And I'm like, but that's not true. That is not true.
Always been in the seat of I'm in the trenches with you guys. I'm going through life with you. My life is not perfect, nor will it ever be. I've never in the almost I think five years that I've been doing this, probably 5 years. I'm like, I will never sit up here and act like my life is perfect and I don't go through things. In 2022, I had a whole mental breakdown and I was questioning all of my belief system. I was questioning everything. And I just sat and I was just like, you know what? I just need to sit with this. I'm not okay. And I just need to sit.
And that's okay. It's okay to say I'm not okay, because we are always right where we should be.
You gotta allow it, just to allow it. And we're not, this facade that we're supposed to be these perfect people and have all the answers is bullshit.
Well, I know. I'm like, well, that's one thing I can say is for sure. I won't have all the answers, but I will tell you you're right where you should be right now.
Yeah. The thing is, when people say the same thing about they're not happy, I do the same thing. I break it down. Well, what are you not happy about? Can you even define what is that? What part of your life? Because you can't tell me every part of your life is unhappy. And if it is, then okay, then let's dissect that also.
Dissect that, yeah. And if that means you're moving to Illinois or Alabama, go. Just go. Yeah.
So, people are like, well, and then it's people are afraid to, well, I won't have anybody there. Okay. You're miserable where you are.
I'm like, yep, you won't, but you will find your people.
I'm like, do it. I'm one of those people. I'm like, do it, because that might just be the huge, what we call tower moment to just shift your life.
Yes.
And like, I didn't even see this coming, because we normally, the picture we have, that what you called the whiteboard, that picture of our life, the universe is like, I actually have a lot more in store for you.
A different whiteboard. Yeah. Don't be stuck on your whiteboard. That's why I say don't use permanent marker on your whiteboard. Because you'll be disappointed every time.
Like, so you jump in your car, you move. Then what happens?
COVID.
COVID was crazy for everyone. It was just a crazy.
For everyone. So I moved. I am very much, and it took a long time. So I don't want anybody to hear this and think that this is an easy thing that I'm about to say. But I got to the point that I trust the nudges. I think, or instinct, or whatever anyone wants to call it.
Right.
I think every day you hear a voice, or you get the feeling, or it's my gut, and we are so trained to ignore it that we never trust it and do it. I just very much through everything I went through, kept getting this nudge to go do. I don't know. Now, sometimes, my family members or my ex-husband will go, well, what you did was you got afraid and you ran away. Call it whatever you want.
Right.
Maybe I did run away from that life, but I ran to what I kept being nudged to do. So the first thing I would say is to people, like, I'm so big on meditation, and maybe it's crazy. I get up every day at 4 a.m. and I take an hour. And as a meditation coach, which could go in a whole other podcast, right. Don't let that make anyone afraid. You can meditate in 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. But I very much have gotten to this point where I will meditate for an hour every day, and I will just listen. And so anyway, I trusted the nudge that was like, you got to go. You've got to trust it. Just go be. And it all fell in line. Like I had, as soon as I was like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going. I had, I have one of my favorite cousins lives in Florida. I have, my favorite uncle lives in Myrtle Beach. I knew somebody who lived in Huntsville who I kind of kept in touch with. So it was just one of those things where I was like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going. And within a couple of weeks, I was offered a temporary position as a public speaking coach. And I knew that it was only for 6 months, and it was based in Nashville, where I couldn't afford to live. Well, Huntsville, Alabama is only an hour and 15 minutes from Nashville. Okay. And I knew somebody in Huntsville, Alabama. So I said to everyone and my kids, I know this looks permanent, and I'm selling everything I own, but I'm going to get an Airbnb. And just see what happens. I'm no longer in an Airbnb. I have my own house, and it's been 6 years. But I just kept like believing and following, the nudges and what the universe was bringing to me. I mean, I could have been like, are you freaking kidding me? I have a really good job, and I have a home, and I have family, and my daughter's pregnant, and I have to stay in Pennsylvania. But I didn't talk myself out of anything. Right. I was just like, okay, universe, you lead, I will follow. Pretty much what I did. And in those 6 months, I got offered a remote job, which was an amazing position. Got me through COVID, got me in the house that I'm in. Like, the universe just always provides. Then I lost that job last November. And, I had the moment of panic. And then I was like, all right, universe, what now? And then I kept getting that, start your own business. Like, you need to be sharing your story. Right. I just keep going with it. And it doesn't mean things aren't hard. Like, my car broke down. I couldn't afford to get it fixed. And I went without a car for 4 months.
Right.
Yeah. And that's another thing I say to people. Just because you trust what the universe is bringing you and you follow it doesn't mean that every moment's easy. There's a lot of hard.
No guarantee that everything you think that's supposed to be there through the experience is going to stay or even be okay, right?
There's a lot of hard. I mean, good grief. I went without a car for 4 months. I lost a job. I mean, you can go through my years here where I've been like, I had an eye parasite. I had COVID. But I think that's part of the lesson that I try to say to people is wherever you are, again, is right where you should be, but just keep trusting. Like, don't get yourself into the victim mentality of it's so hard, because it will be hard, but just trust. It's okay. It's okay.
Right. There's always going to be things that we don't see. And again, our expectation of what things are supposed to be and what we're holding on to.
Oh my word.
I always tell people spirit doesn't give a crap about our car. Like, they don't care about stuff like that. Materialistic stuff, they're like, no, that's not on my agenda.
I do that a lot now where I'm like, I love my house, but I think one of the easiest and happiest times I ever was when it was me, my car, my dog, and 2 boxes. Like, there's a lot of times I look around and I'm like, how did I do this? I have stuff again.
Sometimes it's like that. It's like,
I don't want stuff again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to start to just have things and start to
Yeah.
accumulate things in a place. And you're
Mhm.
just like, how and where? I went through that moving and just was like, where did all this stuff come from?
Yeah, yeah, but it's such a story that I want to share with people because I mean, yeah, mine was a divorce. And yeah, like if you ask my family or friends in Pennsylvania, they may say, you know, you went through a midlife crisis, whatever they want to call it. Um, but oh my word, like I have been led right where I should be. And as
Right.
hard as, you know, losing my job, losing my car, all of that may have been and was, this is what I should be doing. And that's being able to say, my story is not your story. My pain is not your pain, but that's life where we all have a story and we all have pain, but what do we do with it? And that's part of that. You find your own light. You share that story without being embarrassed, ashamed, or afraid of what anyone else is going to think, and just say, it's okay. And you will be okay, and we'll all be okay.
There's a lot of people unfortunately do get stuck with what their family and friends think about them or what they'll say. And unfortunately, a lot of people do not allow people the room to grow and change. The
Mm-hmm.
second you start to shift, it's like, oh, you're different. You're acting different. You're doing it's like, yeah, because I'm changing,
And
now.
that's one of the hardest parts, and I'm sure you understand, is getting to a point in your life, being comfortable enough with who you are to be able to say, you may have been a part of my life for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever, but you're not changing with me.
Right.
So I love you. I'm sharing my light with you, but I'm also choosing to not allow you to affect who I am and let it go.
Right.
Like that's a
It's huge.
hard thing.
It's huge, and
Yeah.
it's very hard because when you're going through it, you start to see how many like toxic connections you have and codependent connections, right? And then you're just like, Jesus, this is a little bit rough, and but at the end of the day,
A lot of it rough.
some of it can get, I always tell people it can get bad if you make it. It's all about how we make it, right?
Yeah.
If you're willing to sit and say, if there's a reason that someone is not growing with me and I'm supposed to let this person go with love, right? There's no hate behind it. I'm not mad at you. I'm not talking shit because you're deciding not to come
Yeah.
along the road. I'm not demeaning you. I'm just like, hey, we're not in the same space anymore. I don't want to be over there with you. I want to be over here.
With
If you
me.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people actually come back around,
They
some
do.
people don't.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get to that, and that's, getting from like letting go of attachment to everyone and everything. And that's one of the biggest and hardest lessons when you're changing and growing and listening to the universe, because the universe will push you to learn that lesson of detaching.
Silence. Yes. I always say you have to be silent, though, to hear the universe.
You do, but those nudges you talk about are real. Those
Mm-hmm.
nudges are there. Those voices are there. Those thoughts, those ideas. Things don't just pop up. The commercials and things that come across, and you're like, I was just thinking about that. I was just talking about that.
There are no
Someone,
coincidences.
you're like someone randomly tells you something. No, it's not random.
You were meant to hear it. Or did you ever have that happen when you're out, I don't know, having breakfast and you never pay attention to any other conversation, but all of a sudden you hear a voice from like 3 tables away that says something. You're like, huh, I guess I was supposed to hear that.
Yeah, it's like that. All of a sudden it's like, cheer, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great feeling. Well, once you recognize it, that's a whole other thing that I've really tried to work with people on.
Yeah.
Once you recognize that you're always being guided, it's a little bit easier to be aware of how you're being guided. But we are so trained to not listen. And I don't know if it's like this for you, but for me, if you have a client who comes from a particularly really religious backgrounds, like prayer is meditation. Like that is meditation. But to transition from a prayer meditation to meditation and listening to a nudge, that is huge. Huge work with people.
Because one, religion is we're asking, right? And praying and asking for God to create. And when you switch over and you're talking to the universe, you're not like begging or asking the universe for gifts and stuff, but you're talking in a different way. It's such a different conversation that you're having, and talking. And it's like, okay, you're just really like, show me what I need to see, show me what I need to see, show me what opportunities, show me which way, show me what path. So you're speaking in those, but you're listening. You're not really talking. You're listening, listening. And I teach meditation also. I got into meditation also. Absolutely love it, because a lot of people would be, oh, I have ADHD and I can't. And I'm like, so do I. Yes, you can.
You can.
You do it already. You just don't know it.
So shut up and listen. Yeah.
And I tell people because I am literally all over the place. I'll be like, oh, and that took my attention over there. But I can jump in and out. I can go in and out, and that's all you need is a couple moments.
Exactly. You can do it all day long. I am very fortunate. And again, I've been meditating for close to 13 years. So when I talk to people and I'm like, well, I get up at 4 and I meditate for an hour, and the whole, normally it's I can't do that. And I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe someday. But everybody can meditate for moments throughout the day, which is one of my huge messages. If anyone to ever say, where do I start? Or, we all have a story, but I'm so depressed, or, whatever. I'm like, start with meditation. Like that would be my number one thing. And there are so many ways you can meditate. And if you are someone who has that connection to your God, prayer is meditation. And I just, take that moment, whether it's 30 seconds or an hour, and sit in silence and talk to your God, talk to your universe, and then just listen. Like, it is such a big step to follow and trust the nudges of what you should do next.
A lot of people don't want to sit with themselves. That's the other part of having to sit with themselves is a big one. A lot of people are constantly distracted, but it's a voluntary distraction. You're distracting yourself because then if you sit and really sit in the shit, right? You're going to have to look in the mirror. I love that. Because you're going to eventually, sitting still in that stillness, you will need to look in the mirror. A lot of stuff starts to become very aware and apparent that you're the problem in a lot of your shit. Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So it's like, oh, nope, I can't do that. And it's just like, so you don't want to do it. Not that you can't do it. You don't want to do it. And what are you avoiding?
That pain.
Because if you really ask yourself, we all have the connection to higher self. And I say higher self. And I'm like, we all have that connection. So that's always my first question is, take a deep breath, close your eyes, ask yourself that question. What is the first thing that you hear? And then normally people are like, I'm like, it's that simple. It's that simple. Breathe in, breathe out, ask yourself that question and just shush.
Have you read the book, The Untethered Soul?
No, it's on my list.
Me too. Keep that on your list, but maybe to the top. But one of the best chapters in there says, I dare you to try to tell the voice to be quiet. And then when you meditate, you're like, like that voice within is never silent. Right. So if you know it's not silent, then it's a choice to listen to it or to shift your perception of what it's saying. And it's such a powerful thing when you realize that we all have that, which, I'd say, that's unlocking your own light within. Yeah. But we have the power to shift our perception. Definitely. And you can do it either way. And I mean, happy's happy to some people. It's different to other people. But what is true is we all have the power to shift what we are feeling in any moment and make a different choice.
Yeah, it is. It is choice. It's choice in that moment. And I wholeheartedly believe, I came from lack and poverty and all of those things that I tell everyone. And I remember sitting in some of these sessions like, what the hell? I'm just gonna think and it's gonna get better. Like I'm just gonna say these positive affirmations and my life's gonna change. So, didn't realize how negative my mind was and my thoughts
Yeah.
and everything. And then again, when you keep sitting with, you're like, and you really, really sit with your thoughts. And every time, because then I would challenge myself, okay, negative thought comes, I got to stop it. And then I was like, Jesus, another negative thought. Like, how many thoughts do I have in a day that are?
Have you ever done that where you count them?
I didn't like count, but I just went through the process of every time one comes in, stop it, uncreate, delete that, and let me go into something positive, like change it into a positive. And then I started to realize like how much negativity was going through my mind in 24
I did that once for, I don't even remember what was going on in my life. It was probably like when I found out that my husband was cheating or something. But I had a day that I remember thinking, how many times do I think things like, I'm a loser? How do I tell people he left me? What did I do? So within the next couple of days, I counted. And I had like on my phone that I would do, like, I acted like it was a bingo card and you do the little daubs. By the end of the day, I was like, oh my word, no wonder I'm exhausted. I just spent a day where no matter what happened, my thought was, I'm a loser. My husband left me. How do we tell our kids? He chose a different woman. And like when people live that, that's exhausting.
It is. And then, in the beginning too, even when you're saying what's going on, when you do start to talk about stuff, you don't even realize how you're addressing yourself. I was so stupid to believe this. I was so stupid. You're like, wait a minute, I'm calling myself stupid. I'm calling myself dumb. Wait a minute.
Talk about awareness. Spend one day where you pull out the notebook or your phone or whatever. Or now I say to people, video record yourself. Like I'm such a big journaler, but I like to write. And I do a lot of automatic writing when I meditate, but that doesn't work for everyone. And especially younger people like their phone. I'm like, pull up your phone. And when you're thinking in your mind, like that's ruminating about whatever, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're ugly, he left you, you lost your job, record it. And then listen to it later. And you're going to be like, would I talk to my friend that way?
Exactly. You wouldn't say that. You would tell her no, and you would coach her, you would calm her down, you would give her love, you would show her compassion. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
I know. Well, especially when you record yourself and you're like, really? Like that's not okay to talk to anyone that way, yet we do it to ourselves.
Oh yeah. In the beginning I did I had a healer, beautiful healer, who had told me to look in the mirror and just say, I love you. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, that's easy, and I go in the mirror and I get choked up. I start crying. I was like, oh shit, what is this? Because I was like, when do I ever tell myself I love you?
Yeah. Or I have people where I do that and it sounds like an easy exercise, but I've had people, well, me included, but then you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, but my roots are gray. Look at the wrinkles. Like you just start to notice other things when you're just supposed to be like, I love you as you are.
Right. I'm actually going to do a podcast on just, the stigma on women getting older and this as if we're decrepit after 20 or something. I don't know why it's like with this stigma.
Oh my word. I'm like, there's a whole other podcast. Like the girls who younger and younger are doing the fillers and Botox and they're in their 20s. And they're like, but I don't ever want my muscles to get used to frowning. So I'll start Botox now. And I'm like, that's a scary thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna accept all of my wrinkles, spots and all. And I say this to everyone, I'm very natural. So I don't put makeup on and stuff. I might do some eyes sometimes, draw on my eyebrows. That's kind of as far as it goes. I'm really into just staying natural and appreciating every line. I have lines. I do have
Well,
lines.
me too, and I would like to say that I'm like you and I appreciate it, but it's probably more like I'm just lazy.
I do. I come, again, I've been around so many people that have tried to stay in their 20s for so long, right?
Yeah.
I had a mother who didn't want to get older. So
Mhm.
like when she was like 50, I think she was like 50, she was still telling people she was in her 30s. And it was like, Mom, we're in our 30s. Why are you lying about your age? You know?
Yeah. My mother is 82, 83. She's gorgeous. I would like to say look like her. I don't. I look just like my dad, who he died from a heart attack at 66. But oh my word, there are times I look at my mother and I'm like, if I could look like her when I'm 83, then bring it on, universe, because I will happily be that age.
Right.
Happily, yeah.
I'm gonna
But again, I
accept
don't look like her.
I'm going to accept whatever comes, grays
Yeah.
and all. I'm going to accept it because it's a part of this life, Yeah, we all could go get Botox. We all can do all of those things, but it's not going to make you feel better. Not really. I don't know. Maybe
No.
feel better. I don't think so.
Although I'll tell you, my son got married not too long ago. It was June 8th. And I did have this moment where I was like, I'm going to see all these people I haven't seen in years. And wouldn't it be nice if I had the money to get Botox and filler so everybody could see me and be like, wow, Z's mom looks so young. But
Right.
I didn't have the money, so it didn't happen.
Right. I'm like, when
Yeah.
you're doing, when you're doing just good in your life, though, where you're naturally just flowing with the universe, I think the glow is different regardless. I think the
Oh,
glow is
absolutely. I think that is, and we could get us off on a whole other thing, but I have realized that the more comfortable I get with myself and the more I share my message of light, the more I can truly look at people like you and others that I will talk to. And I'm
right.
like, that's a true thing when people say I can see the aura or I can see the light around people or I can see colors, where I'm like, that's a whole new thing for me. Where I'm like,
Mm,
I think that comes with the confidence of who you are,
mhm.
and then you can see it in others.
It's definitely trippy.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we did kind of go off on it.
Yeah. There we went.
So I know we kind of jumped around. We do this all the time. It's okay. But I love your message. I will have your links and stuff, of course, your website and everything in the description. So no matter where you guys are watching or listening, her information will be in the description. So go check her out and follow her page. I think it's the website. I don't think it's a page to follow, but
The
follow that.
website. Just look at the website, thelightenme.net.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants more information or has questions for me, there's a little link in there. You can just hit chat and it comes right to my phone.
Yeah. But the message you're saying is awesome, and I do believe it. It's just like, look at everything you've accomplished since then. Like
Mm.
even with and I think that's the true blessing in all of it, is like, no matter what was going on, you still took advantage of those moments while
Mhm.
dealing with what you're dealing with, while mending your broken heart, while figure like, I don't even know what's coming next, but I'm going to go. And I think that's the biggest part of it, is just that surrender. And I don't think we talk about it enough, is that surrendering to the universe. And it really
Mhm.
doesn't matter what you believe in. When you truly surrender to that energy above you, that's okay, I know that you are looking out for me. I know that you care way more for me than what I could possibly see for my
Mhm.
life. When you truly surrender, it's like magic. It's almost
It
like magic,
really
how
is.
from opportunities to just the change. And not to say everything goes perfect, because we're not
Oh,
perfect humans.
no.
There's going to be moments of dips and things like here. But when you think about it, you're always okay, though. There's no real crazy things going on. You're like, I'm good.
Crazy moments, but not crazy
Not
forever.
like devastating. And, you know,
Yeah.
we still got to go through the transformation stuff. Again, not everything is supposed to go with you. There's times where you're going to have to give up certain things, and it's a part of your own path. And I'm like, everyone's path is different. And that's a big thing we all do. Well, why does so-and-so have this, but I can't have this? And it's just like, hey, you're over here. Ask your team. There, you need to see what you're supposed to be doing over here. It doesn't matter what so-and-so is over there doing. That has nothing to do with your path. Your path is unique to you. And I think that's what we have to come back to, this space of understanding you are you in your own journey. And that's going to look different from everyone else. The more people stop trying to be what everybody else is posting, right, on social media.
True.
They could fall into their own stuff and find your purpose, find your passion. A lot of purpose and passion comes through tragedy, you know?
Yes, it does. Right. Again, change is good. Forced change is better.
Definitely. And most, whether it's grieving, even all of that, even looking at grief, everything I see different, from now it's more celebrating life versus mourning death. When I look at suicide, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, I'm like, I don't feel it's a problem. I think it should be legal. I feel like, not that you shouldn't have a conversation with someone who's like, you know what, I'm feeling this way. But what, in my experience, all the times that I've been in those moments, there was nothing that no one could have told me that would have changed my mind.
Oh my word, I understand that. Yeah.
No one could have been like, oh, it's going to get so
I'm like, I could take this on a whole other thing, but I always say, and you would get this because you say that, and I don't want anybody to listen to this. Like, I don't want there to be anybody, watching this or hearing this and think that I am ever giving permission to anyone to make that choice. But I have never seen suicide as an easy way out. I see it as a courageous way to be able to admit that you've lived a life where the pain is too much.
Right. It's easy to say if you're on the other end that, oh, that's an easy way out. But as someone who has sat in the seat of what it feels like, it is not easy.
No, it is not. That takes courage to
leaving family behind, leaving kids behind, and all of those. No, it is not an easy choice. So when someone makes that choice, I always tell people, when someone makes that choice, they really believed in their whole being. They believed that was the best option for them.
And that takes courage to get to that point. It takes a lot of pain to live through it to get to that point. So I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that's crazy when you say that. I'm like, oh, I understand, but that I'm someone who's been there.
And I say most people think, because they take it as like I'm advocating, and it's not that I'm advocating for it, because I would never tell you guys to do it, because I do know that things can change, right? But
things can change, and I'm like, here I am, a testament to how things can change. But I do know.
Exactly. Like, we know that there can be, but I also understand that in that moment, there's nothing that no one can tell you. No one can tell you anything that will actually get you changed. You have to see it, you have to feel it, and you have to believe
that moment. Yep.
And if you don't get that moment, then that's where the other side happens, But that's them and their maker. I say that's them and their maker. They are the ones that are going on the other side. And unfortunately, when you check out early, you don't go to hell, but unfortunately, you didn't learn all your lessons. You have to come back.
It's going to do it again.
You got to come back and do some stuff over again.
Redo.
It's just like, damn,
it's a mulligan. I see a lot of times, I'm like, oh, how many mulligans have I had in life?
I know
universe is done. Can this be my final one?
I know a lot of people don't know, or maybe not believe in past lives and things like that, but a lot of people are carrying things that sometimes are not even from this life. And if you don't understand that, unfortunately, not everyone is clinically trained, like whether it's psychology, psychiatrists, and counseling. Not everybody is trained to understand past life and karma. So if you have someone who has energy flowing through from a past life that they can't get rid of, that they don't understand, that could be very heavy on them. I've actually carried energy from other lives of despair that's not even mine. But my intuition kept saying that this is not mine, but I can't shake it. I can't shake the
Right. So you have
feeling.
to get rid of it. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're going to have some good podcasts. I'm hearing it in your future.
I love talking about all of this because I feel like, one of the good things of me moving here is that I've went back to school for psychology. So I'm kind of putting all of it together so that I can kind of help. Because I do believe mental health is a big thing. And I think a lot of people are struggling with things that are beyond this world that they don't understand. And I think that more of us
100%.
more of us are kind of dual spiritual and the science side of things, but bringing them both together to kind of mesh and help.
Yeah, it has been one of the most interesting things on my journey, and combine that with my educational journey.
Yeah.
So like be able to look at it from both sides.
Exactly. And it's neat because you get the both perspectives, but you also know how real, and that's why I said like how real somebody's reality for them is. Their reality is so real. Somebody else might not believe, somebody else might not, go there, but I've been through some things that people are like, yeah, that didn't happen. And I'm like, no, to me, it's real.
It happens. Yeah. Yeah.
It happened to me, but I noticed that it's just meshing them. I think is just something that will help more, and I think more of us are being pushed to be
that whole light. The light in me, let it shine to the light in you.
Definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a shift going on.
Yeah, I do feel it, and I love it, and I'm even meeting like therapists and stuff. I've worked with some therapists because I do QHHT, past life regressions, also. So with some of them, and they're feeling the call too, and it's like, yeah, we're all coming.
Oh yeah, there's a shift. It's exciting.
It is because you can help so much more by understanding what we cannot see, what we cannot feel, what we cannot understand, right? And tap into that and allowing that higher self or allowing higher level energy to kind of flow through without it being all demonized and you're sent to the you said nope, you're crazy. And I had a podcast, I was talking to one lady where she had, in the beginning of her spiritual path, she actually went to the mental hospital, and they actually deemed her schizophrenic, unfortunately. And
see how that would happen.
She was in her dead grandmother speaking to her. She's a medium. She's actually an angelic medium now, but when it was all happening, she didn't understand what was going on. She went, and unfortunately that's on her record forever. And it's kind of sad that, not to say, and we said it there too, it's not to say that schizophrenia is not a thing and that it's not real, because it's very real, but there are people who get labeled, but they actually got a lot more stuff going on.
Now you could get me in a whole other topic about labels and a diagnosis and how they were all created. And I'm like, that takes you down the whole road of, this is, the world today because of health insurance.
Oh, so yeah.
Somebody somewhere someday was like, we have to start to label things and give them a term to get them paid. So people just like that lady, where I'm like, okay, I live in the South now, bless her heart. Like, that's not okay. Like, it's just not okay. So it takes more of your work and my work and everybody out there to completely shift the way the story goes.
Definitely.
To share the new story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much for coming on. And we might need to do a couple podcasts.
I know, I'm like, sign me up. We'll do another one.
So much stuff. We really could. But thank you again. Just thank you for coming on and sharing your story and just speaking with our viewers. I know that they will get something off of it, because this is just stuff that we talk about. And I love bringing this kind of awareness and just more people that they can work with. I tell everyone, you don't have to work with me. Go find someone else. I'm going to bring them to you.
100%. There are people out there.
You can go work with anyone. Find the people you're called to, and boom.
Find a person.
So anything you want to leave the viewers and listeners with as we close out?
The only thing I would say, and I know I've said it a number of times, is for everyone out there, we all have our own light within. Go shine and spread that light, because that's the way we make a difference.
Definitely. All right, you guys, check the description for her information and go contact her. All right. Until next time, bye.